Hello and welcome to Mini Pure Fantasy Sports Community. I'm your host, Blake, coach of Youngies Yaks, and I'm joined by Clinton.
I'm coach of Dash's Dogs. How are you, Blake?
Good, thanks, mate. It's a big week for AFL Supercoach, AFL Fantasy, with the dual position players. They've had the addition of those statuses this week, and the buys coming up for round 12, so very exciting. We had the mid-season draft for the AFL tonight, and our dad's harness horse had a big win on Monday.
Allawart Bob run and won at, where was it again? Stall? No, where was it? Horsham.
Horsham, yeah.
Horsham, yeah. Big win for Bob. When it strings some form together, it often gets a couple of wins. So let's see its next start.
Yeah, I'm just sharing. We're live again, Clinton, for round 12 for this show covering AFL Fantasy and Supercoach. I'm just sharing that to our community now for our Patreon, so they can join that live. What have you been up to over the last week, Clinton?
I went to the Gold Coast for the weekend, experienced some nicer weather. Fair to say, Gisborne's been pretty wet and cold the last couple of days. Same old,
Was it
mate.
snowing?
Was it snowing? Pretty damn close, I'd say. No doubt some snow at Mount Macedon, but no, getting close. In terms of the footy, I watched a fair bit over the weekend, and I'm excited heading into this round. This is the round which some people can boost their rankings, but also a lot of people stuff up their teams. So it's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks, but this week especially.
Yeah, welcome to anyone who joins us with the comments. I'll try and add them into the show as we go. But thank you to our new subscribers over the last week, Clinton. We've got a few new subscribers to our YouTube channel. So thank you for anyone who follows us on there. For our patrons, if you need any help with your buy structures over the next 3 weeks, make sure you reach out. So we'll assist you as much as possible if you don't have a Supercoach Gold subscription or anything like that. So if you want to be our patrons, make sure you reach out. And if you're not a Patreon member and enjoy the channel, make sure you go check out our page, which I'll put the link on our show notes and also on your screen now for our YouTube watchers. So check out our Patreon page, and thank you to everyone who's subscribed over the last couple of weeks. We've had a few new subscribers there. We've got a fair bit to cover here, Clinton, for the buys and the dual position players. So let's get into the show. We'll kick off with our super coach, and we'll kick it off with our usual fashion of doing our round reviews. So how did you go for round 11, Clinton, for super coach?
Round 11, I scored 24.54, which now leaves me at a rank of 2017. Had a few of the good scorers, Sicily, Stewart, Neil, etc. But just a couple of players let me down, especially Dane Zorko, especially Christian Petrarca, and I captained Jackson McRae for 102, so definitely could have been a bit better, but they're pretty popular players, although Zorko was the really main risky pod I selected a few weeks ago, and hasn't really come through. So I'm going to correct that this week, which is very controversial, like ideally bringing these premiums to stay in, but I'm just going to pretend he's got injured and I can just move on. So looking at my team now, he's already out. So I'm trying to move on from that fact. I was planning on doing not many trades this week, but that's certainly changed. So I'll get to my trades for later.
Yeah, it's unlucky with the Zorko pick, Clinton. Yep.
Just to recap, so the trades I actually did make last week, I traded out Sam de Koning and Nick Martin. So he rebounded with a pretty handy score, but I brought in Bont, which I was pretty keen to bring in. Didn't really pay off this round. What he scored 96. I was hoping for a lot bigger score over in Perth, and I needed a cheap option. Cleary didn't get selected, so I ended up going with the GWS rookie and Jacob Ware. And he's my fingers and toes are crossed that next week he'll stay in the team because he's pretty important to my round 13 team.
Yep. not a bad score there, Clinton, for round 11. I scored 2,408, which the average score was 2,293, but I think most of those sort of top tier players, so probably the top 20K, they would have scored above what I scored. That average would have been brought down by players that have dropped off for the Supercoach season. So my rankings dipped slightly. I'm 8,280, so still keeping close-ish to you, Clinton, but I'd like to get a bit closer to you. I had to manage a bit of carnage over the last weekend. So I had 3 GWS players that I thought were going to return and play, and they didn't. That was Perouse, Taranto, and Whitfield. So I had to do a few trades, which I didn't plan on to cover that. I traded out Connor McDonald and Nick Martin, who bounced back quite well. I brought in Rioli and your man Darcy Cameron for a score of 93. I VC'd Lockie Neal's score and obviously locked that in with looping Ward. So that worked out quite well for me. My trades in the end, I worked out, it got me an on-field points rise of 1 point after my trades. So, yeah, glad I did that. Yeah.
So with your Darcy Cameron selection, that's obviously a bit late to that bandwagon. Are you planning on keeping him for a while now, or I'm certainly thinking of completing my team with a trade of him in a couple of weeks. So it's a very short-term pick, or?
Yeah, probably just to get me through the bye rounds. I knew that he was obviously going to get ruck status, so it was just mainly just to get me through the bye rounds, and he's still got a pretty low break even. So over the next 3 rounds, he'll go up in price, and I'll be able to loop him into my ruck division and use him that way while the bye rounds are on.
Very good.
Yep. Let's get into this week's one of your favourite segments, Clinton. This week's Guess Who. I'm experiencing a bit of lag here on my my transition, so excuse that, Clinton. If you remember last week's Guess Who, Clint?
No.
Every week. Last week was Brad Crouch. He returned an average score of 105 last week. So not one of my better ones, but still pretty handy. And he's averaging about 125 over the last 3 rounds. So just to recap some of my other Guess Who's, Clinton. My very first Guess Who, Sinclair for St Kilda. You almost scoffed at me about getting him in when I did Guess Who. He's been averaging 128 over the last 3. And Josh Kelly's the highest averaging player over the last 3 rounds, 137 over the last 3. So my Guess Who's are going quite well, Clinton.
Well, I'm looking forward to this week then. I might have to bring them in because I have massive regret about choosing Zorko instead of Sinclair. So let me have it,
this
Blake.
might be a player. Yeah, this is a player you should be having your eye on, Clinton. It's a player who hasn't got a massive 3-game average or a 5-game average. He's averaging 107, Clinton. And against the next 3 opposition, his previous scores against them have been 120, 183, and 193.
His next 3 opposition.
His next 3 opposition, his high scores against them have been 120, 183, and 193. So he's coming up to some good form, Clinton.
In the ruck.
He's about to get another. He's in the ruck and is about to get another contested ball back into his team to get some more hit-outs to advantage.
Big Sean Darcy. I like it, Blake. Well played.
I think between him and Tim English, there'd be probably the highest averaging ruckman to finish out the season. He's just starting to hit his straps now, and I think a lot of people should be considering bringing him into their team.
Well played. I like it, Blake. Good Guess Who. We'll get to our trades later.
Yeah, we've got some comments coming through. So Jared says g'day.
G'day,
And
Jared.
Jono also says g'day. So,
G'day, John.
yeah.
Thanks for
Welcome.
sharing.
Welcome.
Good comments.
Yeah, great comments. Had to be included. Let's get into our bold predictions. How did your bold predictions from last week go, Clinton?
Dismally. As I said, I backed in Zorko. I needed a big score. I brought him in. He'd just gone average for his first couple of weeks that I had him in my team, and then he pumps out whatever it was, 30 something. And I can't remember what I said. I think I said 140 plus. Nowhere near that. Very disappointing. And as I said, I'm going to correct that. The other bold prediction was Max Gawn to score 150. It's back to his sort of average scores of 118, which is good, but at the same time, the idea of last week was I wanted him to make people pay who don't have him, and it hasn't quite happened yet. So maybe this week, but yeah, 2 failed bold predictions last week.
Yep. My bold predictions last week, my Moz was on Cornelio to fail, and he scored 85. So not the highest score, but wasn't as low as what I was predicting.
At quarter time, that was looking very, very sketchy. But maybe it was for the last 3 quarters you mozed him well.
Yeah, that's that was my intention. I'm just trying to get an audio up for my next player that I bold predicted last week, but I haven't got it.
Oh.
It is Patrick Cripps was my bold prediction last week, Clinton. Yes, I'm slowly learning how to say his name. It's not Jack Crisp. My prediction was for Cripps to go big, and he didn't really. He scored only 114. So my bold prediction failed there. Our bold predictions for this week, Clinton. My first one, my player that I'm anticipating is going to go big is Tim English. He is in great form, obviously returning. I wasn't expecting him to do that, Clinton. His career high in disposals. Returned back to the form that he showed before he had that injury. So my bold prediction is that Tim English is going to score 200 this week.
That is bold. I wasn't sure what you were going to say then. I thought you might have said 150 plus, but 200.
That's not bold enough. That's not bold enough after what he did last week.
Okay. Yep. What's your next one?
No, you need to go next with your next two because the Moz is my
okay.
The Moz is last.
We'll talk about individual players a bit later on. I want to talk more about English. My first bold prediction, you've already mentioned him as the guess who. Sean Darcy is the name that I had already written down. There's a lot of other players thinking about English. Obviously, a lot of people brought in Wits last week, but Sean Darcy, I do believe that will go slightly under the radar for buy-ins this week, and he's currently, as you said, 4% of teams. But after this week, I think he'll demand more attention. And 200 is very bold for you for the big Tim English, so I better go slightly bold with mine. Let's go Sean Darcy, 180 plus. I did have 160. I did have 160, but me in the middle. Let's go 180 for Sean Darcy.
Pathetic.
My second bold prediction is a couple of players currently in my team who will be departing my team. So sometimes in Supercoach, it's nice to get a nice farewell gift. And 2 players, I've already traded out Sandy Koning, but a lot of people will be trading him after this week. But the 2 players that I'd love to score me 90 plus this week in their farewell out of Dash's Dogs, Patrick McCartan and I was going to say his first name, but I don't know it. McComb and McCartan
Robbie.
To both score 90 plus as a farewell gift to my team. That'll really help me with my trades for the following week. and nice little parting gift by those two to score 90 plus.
Yeah, that's some very wishful bold predictions there, Clinton. Just blatantly barracking for your players to score well. My Moz for this week, Clinton, is a player that's been playing very well over the last few rounds, and I think the opposition will put a bit of attention into him this week and not let him intercept Mark.
Oh no!
And just they won't let him just do whatever he wants across the Geelong back line.
I do not like this at all.
Tom Stewart will score below 70 this week against Bulldogs. So try and limit his impact on the game after what he's been doing lately. So that is my second bold prediction. Yep.
Well, if you'd really shadowed me after that one, Bulldogs do like to move the ball quick, and I do think that Thomas Stewart will be the man to take several intercept marks. Although Brian Taylor doesn't like them being called intercept marks, they're just marks to Brian.
I don't listen to anything Brian says. So.
No, I hate that one, Blake. I don't want that one to happen. So,
all right, that's all right, Clinton. We'll see how we'll come back to that next week. See how our bold predictions went. Let's get into some. I've got a couple of whispers for this week, Clinton. Okay. I saw on the social media on the Twitter that Will Kelly, he was pretty much in everybody's team going into the start of the season, and then he picked up an injury. Will Kelly is close to full fitness and will be back playing soon for the Pies. Petrarca was sick last week. As to why he scored so low, and he didn't train on Monday either. But they expect him to be all right for this week, according to Goodwin today.
Good.
And
good,
Patrick Parnell, there's a debutant for the Crows. Patrick Parnell will be playing his first game for the Crows. It's one of the first debutants, Clinton, that makes me feel old. If you have a look at the picture that Adelaide posted of him, the kid looks 12. So he's not going into my team just for that reason, as he looks 10 years younger than me.
He can't be younger than Tom Powell. Tom Powell still looks 13.
Nah, this kid fights him for that. Don't mean to be ageist, but the kid looks 12. So I'll find a picture for you, Clinton, and I might be able to share it on the screen here.
I've seen it. It's I do know what you mean, but Tom Powell's still younger.
All right, let's get into our community questions for this week.
Scary.
Yeah, the transition from my end's lagging a bit here, Clinton. So hopefully it's coming through right for you. So yeah, if you're watching the show live, make sure you leave some comments and send through your community questions. With my first few questions, Clinton, I've been doing something lately where I say a statement and then I follow it up with a non-football related question. So yeah. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts on this first one. Okay. The next round of dual position players got added this week, which will be important for all of our Supercoach strategies. What's your best Arnott's assorted cream biscuit?
Yeah,
I know you like your biscuit. Yeah, you like your cup of tea.
There was a lot of relevant players. Obviously, Bontempelli and Bailey Smith. Tim English, did he gain? What did he gain? Did he gain forward? Was he already forward?
He was always off.
Oh,
he
sorry.
was already forward ruck.
Yeah, a couple of the main ones. Obviously, Bontempelli and Bailey Smith. And I think the most relevant is Bont, in my opinion. I jumped on early. He hasn't really come through yet, but if he can return back to his best, I think he'll be the most relevant DPP for the round just gone. Now, I don't eat those biscuits.
That's controversial in itself.
Because the reason being, I've made my children addicted to Cookers Country cookies.
The Donald Bickies.
They're produced in Donald, not far from Minyip. So it's almost Can we classify Cooker's Country Biscuit as our cookies as Minyip's own?
Yeah. Jump on a sponsorship deal, I think, for Cooker's Country Cookies.
So the last time I would have had one of those, what'd you say, assorted biscuits would have to be back in Minyip about 20 years ago, I'd say. So I would never know what's the first and second or the best. But my guess is Monte Carlo one of them or not? Is that a separate one?
Monte Carlo. Yeah, Monte Carlo is one of them. That's one of the favourites.
I'll go with that one.
All right. Now, let's
what's
get
your
back
favorite,
to Supercoach.
No, what's your favorite?
I like the caramel ones. It's got like a it's a It's a smaller caramelly one in the packet.
Get
I don't know the name of it, but yeah, we need that to be our sponsor. I think Cooker's Country Cookies Community Questions. The mid-season draft occurred tonight. Clinton, any relevant players there? And what show was better, Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad?
Oh, great second question. I've seen, good, Tim. I do think I've seen who was drafted. Obviously, it all depends. It's too early to predict, but I think there will be very relevant players, especially in the coming weeks. We want to be moving a few of these players on, like I've already mentioned McCartan and McComb and Sam DeConing. People will be flicking for the team. So to go up and down, these players will be very important. I know personally, I'll be having 2 ruck premiums. I'll be having Tim English in my forward line, and I'll be wanting an R3, a ruckman, a mid forward swing, a cheap ruck forward. And I don't know who that player will be yet. So potentially there might be something out of tonight that will come through for that reason. And then also, across the field, we've got to be wanting those rookies still coming through the next couple of weeks. And I'm hopeful that from tonight's mid-season draft, there'll be a part of that. But who that will be, I have no idea.
Yeah, I saw there's potential. Port Adelaide picked up a player. I can't remember his name, but there's potential he might be a ruck forward. And also the Hawthorn young fella they picked up as well potentially might pick up that DPP status. So we'll wait and see once they're loaded up into the game.
I think that Port rookie was already there. So he was, I think, 117K. But the question would be if there was any tonight that'll be a 102. Ideally, you want to be bringing him at that really cheap basement. All those little 15 to 20Ks add up. Right now, as we speak, I was looking at a 123,000 player, but ideally I can say that 21,000.
Yep, Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad?
Oh, sorry. I love both. Game of Thrones was one of my favourites. The last season was a bit dismal,
until the end.
Yeah, Breaking Bad also. So it's very line ball for that, but I'd still lean just towards Game of Thrones. The first 4 or 5 seasons were I was glued to the screen every single episode, whereas Breaking Bad I loved, but not quite as much.
Yep, good call. Question from the community. Question from the community now, Clinton, from Jono. Thoughts on Zach Merritt after his bye?
Good, Jono. Love it. Personally, just talking about my team, I've currently have 6 defense. I'll get to my team a bit later. Sorry, but I'm still looking for that M8 and looking at my money, how I'm generating it, and how the rest of my team is looking. I think Zach Merritt's going to be the perfect option. The way I'm making my trades this week won't allow me to get the M8 next week. It'll be going towards round 14. However, I still think Zach Merritt is almost at the top of my list. I don't have the likes of Callum Mills. There's someone else I'm missing. Can't remember who it is as we speak. But yeah, Zach Merritt. Oh, sorry, Darcy Parish. Darcy Parish, Sam Walsh. Those are the few of the names I don't have. But if Merritt is that $1,000 cheaper, I think if I can afford him, I may go in that direction. So I do really like that pick.
Yep, so do I. Next one, Clinton. Best rookie options for this week and your go-to Monopoly piece when starting a game Monopoly.
Rookie for this week, I've already mentioned, but I'm bringing in R3. So it's pretty much a donut. So I don't care necessarily if that player doesn't play all year, but there's a part of me that sort of wants to be a player that could potentially play. It's going to be a ruck forward option. So that's the best rookie for me. Is whoever that is, I don't know. I think there's a few people heading towards Joel Jeffrey for the Gold Coast. He's 188K, but for now, I don't want to bring in another player with a round 13 bye. Mitch Owens for St Kilda has got the bye this week. A lot of people are bringing him in already, but I'll be bringing him in next week. They're the main couple. So yeah, interesting to see if Luke Cleary comes in. He's still cheap and he's still being brought in by almost 2,000 super coaches. So yeah, it's interesting. So the answer is not many.
Yeah.
And what was the second question?
There's not many.
Monopoly.
Monopoly.
We played a Monopoly a lot as kids. You were a bit younger than me, Blake, so you sort of missed that real battle between the older brothers. We're a family of 6 boys. Us 4 older brothers played a fair bit, especially on rainy days. Otherwise, we'll be in the backyard. Gavin, our oldest brother, would always choose the battleship. So whenever I could play without him, for that reason, I just like the battleship. I just like the idea of going to war and
taking his piece.
Yeah, so that was the one for me, the battleship.
The next question I'll cover for you, Clinton, is Tom Mitchell as a potential M8 option because of his value. I covered this last week on the show. I think his role this year has changed with Hawthorn in comparison to previous seasons. He did score well coming back from an injury 2 rounds ago, but I think that score was inflated due to the fact that he managed to have a few shots on goal and was able to, put a few through in Tasmania. But he returned a score of 85 last round, and he's not attending as many centre bounce clearances. So for me, Tom Mitchell is a no, even though he is great value and a previous high scorer. I'd like to see his role return to something like it was last year. I don't know what it is he's doing differently, whether they're asking him to defend more, but it's not the same role that he was playing in previous years where he could just rack up the stats. Buy strategy this week, Clinton. I'm not going to follow this up with a second question because there's too much to unpack here, and it'll depend on each individual's how they're set up for different rounds. But buy strategy, what's the best way to go? Would you prefer to have 20 players, including 5 rookies, or 17 premiums and be a man short?
From those 2 options, it all depends how your team's looking for at the end of the buys. So it's a difficult question to answer because on any given week throughout the buys, you don't want to ruin your team just to field 18. So in that situation, it all depends on your team. I know going into round 13, that's the big one for me that I'm very close to, 18 or not. I need the players who are actually playing in my team at the moment to get through this week and make sure they are available next week. So, for example, let's just talk quickly about Tim English. He's not in a huge amount of teams. People are bringing him in this week. I'm one of them, and I wasn't going to be doing this time last week. He was coming back for his first game for about whatever it was, 4 or 5 weeks. It was working out perfectly for me that he'd come back in, you'd play 1 game, 2 games, have a bye, and then I was going to get him in round 14. But by scoring 160 and then with his matchup versus Geelong this week, it's just completely flipped my thinking this week and completely changed my trade plans. And I consider him if you want him, if you don't have him, like this is the week. That's my opinion. I don't think you can wait another week. In my example, I've got Dane Zorko. I'm going to flip my money around, and I could keep Zorko for this week and end next week. But despite English having the bye next week, I'm getting Zorko out because he was projected to go down 30k. English is projected to go up at least 30. So just do it now. So that's my thinking. Everyone's slightly different, but ideally, in a perfect world, you've got about 20 playing in this week coming up. Round 13 is very difficult, but if you get to 18, I wouldn't ruin your team just to get 18. But ideally, you can train in a couple of players who are coming off their round 12 bye. Get to 18, ideally. 18 to 20 is a great number, but I wouldn't ruin your team to do it. Then round 14, hopefully by that stage, after another few trades, you've got at least 19, 20. So it's all about getting your team completed by the end of the 3 buys and not ruining a team just to field 18.
Yep, well answered there,
story.
Clinton. Would you? Nearly. Yeah, it went a while. Would you consider? Just about. Would you consider trading Max Gawn up to a Tim English or a Sean Darcy if you were in
Definitely
that
not. No. Max is obviously had a few weeks ago now, he's had that little knee issue. He hasn't played his best, but on any given week, he can score 200. And he hasn't really shown himself as the R1 lock, but after about 5 or 6 weeks, he was that, and everyone's like, if you don't have Max Gawn, you're losing Supercoach. But the last few weeks have been slightly disappointing, but I'm still backing him in. If you're an owner, I would not sell him for anyone.
Fair enough. That's pretty much the rest of my questions done there, Clinton. Did you have any other players you want to discuss in Supercoach before we get into our trade plans?
No, I think we'll get into our trade plans and we'll discuss it further from there.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll cover it off in that. Let's get into trade plans. Yep, so I'll kick off with my trade plans, Clinton. So I currently got 13 trades. I'm looking to use 2 of them at the moment. And for me, the must-have player is Tim English. Even though I'm pretty well set up for my round 13, that I will have enough, even if I have heaps of Western Bulldogs players. So he is a must-have for me after returning what he did last week, and you've already reeled off as to why he's a good pick. So at the moment, my trades are Sam Hayes and Zach Butters out for Tim English and the best rookie option possible. At the moment, I could afford anyone under 185k. Potentially, it might be another just ruck forward bench cover, or potentially at the moment it's depending on team selection, it's Toby Bedford who's making his way into my forward line at 180k and a break even of 4. So that's my trades at the moment. Clinton, 2 Port Adelaide players out for Bedford and Tim English. I'm looking to VC Tim English on the first Friday night game and then assess it after that. But Tim English is going to score 200 anyway. And then probably my captain option is going to be Tuke Miller against, is it North Melbourne or Eagles? Against North Melbourne. Yep.
Very interesting trade out in Zach Butters. Can you explain that one?
He's not going to be in my finishing back 6. I mean, my forward line 6 at the end of the year, Clinton, and he's just one of the players that needs to go. There's not too many other players that are on my list and got the bye this week to get the numbers that I want playing this week. My other options were trading out Bruce, which I don't want to do. He's still got cash to make. Hobbs, Cripps, Rioli, Doherty, Hewitt, Houston. Out of those players, he's not going to be making any more value, and that way I can get up to English.
It's interesting. He's scored 3 tons in a row, and he's guaranteed to play next week. Bruce is the interesting one there. You said about still making money. He's not going to continue to make money if he's not playing. He didn't play his last 2 games, and there's nothing for certain that he's coming back in. So he played VFL on the weekend. They've got the bye, so there's a bit of risk there. So that's it. It's interesting. I still see see a world where he does come back in and dominate. He's got a lot of good matchups in the near future if he's playing. So interesting one. Just quickly of your whole team. After this weekend's trades, how many players you need to still upgrade in your? If you had put them all on field, which ones still need to be? How many more upgrades do you need to make to get full strength? Just a quick question.
It depends on who you consider to be full strength. My weakest link in my defense is Whitfield, but I'm planning on holding him for the rest of the season, depending on that he returns after the bye and that he returns scoring well. I plan on holding him for the rest of the year. I believe it's just one in Greg Clark, and just looking at it now. Sorry, you've caught me off guard here a bit.
Right.
Darcy Cameron and Greg Clark are my weakest links.
Yeah, no, I was just intrigued. All good.
Yeah, so Whitfield, Greg Clark, and Darcy Cameron with 11 trades left.
Yeah, well, definitely Whitfield, Bruce, keeping them over Butters is an interesting debate. So good luck. I won't force you down anything what I think. Okay, my trades. As I said, Zorko has failed me, and I want to play aggressive. Similar to you, I had 13 going into this week coming up. My plan is to get rid of Dane Zorko, Braden Pruce, and Sam Hayes, and I'm bringing in Sean Darcy, Tim English, and that cheap ruck option, which I haven't decided yet. Currently, I've got Samson Ryan for Richmond, who's their 3rd option ruck, but I'm hoping to get a cheaper option there, who's a ruck forward. That will take me down to 10 trades with 60K in the bank. In terms of my on-field setup, I've already got my trade plans set up for next week. As I said, I'll be trading out McCartan and McComb and bringing in Owens and Jack Sinclair. And that will only leave me with Darcy Cameron. That's a big sneezer. Only leaving with Darcy Cameron as the last player that I would upgrade to the M8 player. So I've got it all mapped out perfectly at the moment. Things will change, no doubt, but that'll leave me at going to round 14 with the full strength team with 7 trades left. That's my plan. Back to this week, I'm also going to VC Tim English. I've got a weird feeling that Bontempelli will show his best again. I'm just looking at his ownership. He's only 12% of teams Bont. I've got a feeling he'll have a great game, but because I'm bringing in English and against Blixarves, I can see another big score for Tim English. My C option, similar to you, I'll decide that if English fails, but it could be anyone between Laird, Oliver, Sean Darcy, or Lockie Neal. So just going over my team quickly again, I'm going to have, I think it's 20 players for this week. The other bit of advice I will give people, for example, with my team, I've got 7 premier mids this week. Patrick Cripps isn't playing. I've got McComb and Greg Clark. I'm going to have the emergency on McComb, and then if he dominates, I'll just leave Cripps on field. If McComb fails, I'll bring Clark on field for Cripps. That way, I'm just looping a couple of options. I'm doing the same in the forward line with Rosas, and Connor McDonald as well. So that's just something you can still do. You can still do loops throughout this bye period, and I'll have that option to loop in a couple of players. So that's just quickly. So, for example, if you've got McComb, if you start him on field as your M8 and then he fails, yeah, you're just missing out on that bench option coming on for him. So,
yeah. So, sorry, how many plays have you got this week, Clinton?
I believe it's 20.
Yeah.
Although I think Buku may get dropped. That's my guess, which may take me to 19.
I was very disappointed that Buku didn't pick up forward status. I didn't realize you had to play a minimum six games.
Yeah.
Have to wait another 6 weeks for him to get that forward status, so I can loop him as an option. Yep, very good, Clinton. So if you bring in Tim English and you bring in Sean Darcy, and
Correct.
Tim English scores 200 as your captain, there's 580 points this week you're picking up in trades. So it's good going.
Well, as I said, a week ago, I was looking at playing it pretty cautiously going to this week, but the way it's panned out, I'm going aggressive. I'm bringing in the three-prong attack of English, Darcy, and Gawn. Witsy obviously is the big omission out of the big ruckman, but I'm quite content with Gawn, Darcy, and English.
Yep. Anything further to add on Supercoach before we get into AFL Fantasy, Clint?
No, I still think this is probably this will be the second highest scoring round of the buys. Next week will be the lowest, in my opinion, and then going to round 14, there'll be some big scores again. But there's a lot of teams. Obviously, Carlton got several players people have. Richmond's quite a few. Port, yeah. So I think everyone should be fielding at least 18. It should be a high scoring round.
Yeah, if you planned in advance, you should be pretty well set up this week, and a lot of teams might struggle going into next week. All right, Clinton, let's get into our AFL Fantasy segment. Thank you for joining us if you've just flicked to this stage. But obviously encourage our listeners and our viewers to stay through the whole show, Clinton. You might pick up some extra bit of knowledge, even if you just do play one side of it. So we'll just get straight into it, Clinton, with our round review of AFL Fantasy from round 11. I'll kick us off. I scored 2,164. Which took me down in the rankings about 300 spots to be 3,042. So still not a bad ranking there, but could have been much better. A few decisions if I had have made the other way. It's 200 points difference. So my trades that I made, I traded out Dixon and Carroll, who weren't playing, and brought in Roberts, who scored me a massive score of 6 on the bench. And I've also brought in Jared Witts, who scored 84. And I captained him straight off after bringing him into my team. So there's my first mistake. I should have waited on my VC and VC'd Neil. But my risk was that I didn't have a looping option after the Friday night, which turned out to be quite well for me in considering that Roberts scored 6, but I should have waited a bit longer, but then the risk was I didn't have a looping option anyway. So
you can't
that cost me.
You can't wait if you don't have a looping option, Blake. So
technically it would have been better if I played Roberts as 6 on the field than captaining Witts over Lockie Neal. But anyway. And I also had the choice after Roberts failed to bring on Butler for Hawthorn or Hoff for West Coast, and that cost me an additional 63 points there. Hoff putting in a massive score of 99. So between my captaincy and that other option there, that cost me around 200 points, which was, I could have had an absolutely massive score for the round, but that's the way AFL Fantasy works. Clinton, how did you go?
Hasn't been my year. I scored 21.35, a bit below you. I'm ranked 8.59, which is still dismal. I was making some small progress, but halted again, and that's due to a couple of bad trades I made. I'd been holding Jake Bowie all year and getting frustrated. I traded him out. He scored 87. Also traded out Nick Martin, which obviously in hindsight it's very silly, but I thought just the way Essendon were playing, and I thought he maybe had hit a wall a bit, but that's not the case because he scored 113. So I traded both those guys out, and the main reason was because I wanted Bont. And once again, it was due to the matchup in the West. I thought he'd dominate. Who was out? English was back in. I just thought Bont was going to play midfield and dominate. So very disappointing from him. I brought in quite similar Supercoach. I brought in Bont and I brought in Jacob Ware for the Giants. So hopefully in the long run, Bont can repay the faith. But across the board, I'm just not quite nailing it in AFL Fantasy. I captained McRae, which obviously a few Bulldogs were in that game. I could have chosen Bont, but I could have chosen Dunkley, who scored the biggest out of the Bulldogs. But Bailey Smith was a late out. Well, he's not a late out, but he was an out. And I've owned him. Do you own him as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was disappointing that he didn't play. Is what it is. I'm just trying to make ground and get closer to you. And we're very similar in formats, just the other way around.
Yeah, that's right. We'll get to the questions in our comments section when we get up to our community questions. But first, we'll just quickly go through our hits and misses, Clinton, from round 11. Yep. Again, the lag is destroying me tonight. But is it coming through all right for you, or is it lagging a bit as well?
No, it's all good. I heard the orchestra with the violins there. It was good.
I think they're due for some changes. So if anyone's got some feedback on the transitions, let me know about it. Hits and misses from round 11, Clinton. A man that I got in a few weeks, probably about 4 rounds ago now, and you're surprised at my selection, but I brought in Adam Treloar, and he's been on fire lately. He scored 129 in round 11. So he's my biggest hit for round 11. And also Sam de Koning, he put in a score of 83. He had to take the field after had a few outs. So very good performance from a rookie who's just been gradually rising in price, and to put it on an 83 performance was very handy from last round. Clinton, was your hits?
Yeah, I'll also give a shout out to Sam de Koning. He was on my bench. I had the emergency on him, and I was able to loop him on. So I was actually going to play, I think it was Corey Durden instead of him. So for him to score 83, I looped him on, and very happy with that. The other special, I have a lot of just average scores. Obviously, quite a few higher scores that a lot of people own, but I just want to shout out to Rory Laird. He's got 119. Nothing too special, but the fact that he's only still owned by 4% of teams, I can feel a big score coming soon, and I'm happy he's in my team. I think Adelaide have good fixtures coming up, so he's one of those premiums that I hope can really repay the faith that I brought him in a few weeks ago, and 119, just okay.
Yep, not bad. My missus from last week, I'm not sure if he's in your team, Clinton, but Christian Petrarca in the flu game scored 40. Is he in your team?
No, he's. Well, I think the last few weeks I've brought in a few premiums. I just brought in Laird and Bont, but avoided Petrarca, so he's actually good for me, so I can get him in a couple of weeks.
And famously tweeted about it being the flu game from Roy of Coach Destroy of the AFL Traders. If you caught that show earlier in the week, Clinton,
I did.
the flu game. Yeah, the flu game was 40. And my other miss is a player who's just about the favourite for the Rising Star Award is Dacos, putting a score of 52. Just not good enough. He needs to be chopped from my team very soon. He hasn't really put in too many big scores, and 52 in a round where I needed him to perform well, he didn't. So Dacos was my second miss.
Yeah, one of those options I brought in recently was Dane Zorko. He scored 49. Similar to Supercoach, just very disappointing. He's actually, because he's a defensive mid, for him to be down there, it was actually a good option to bring in a few weeks ago, I thought. But 49, pretty bad. And the other one's Bont. He scored 80. And as I said, I traded out Nick Martin, and Bowie was always going, but then I traded out Nick Martin especially so I could get Bont. So that was a minus 33 to get Bont. So disappointing in this time round, but as I said, in the long run, I'm hoping Bont can repay the faith. So a couple of disappointments there.
Yeah, if you viewed the show last week, I was Zorko was coming into my team at this stage last week. Lucky I had a few outs and I changed a few things around and didn't get him in because, I saw that game and very glad I wasn't owning him. Let's get into our community questions. I know you love your AFL fantasy, Clinton, and one version of the game that you play is the draft. Are you still in the Bacon Cup?
I'm just it's not a draft. Sorry, I'm not in any drafts this year. I'm just all about the classic. So
Okay.
hopefully, the Bacon Cup's just head-to-head matchups in classic.
Hopefully, you can answer this question for me, Clinton. How do buys work in the draft game?
Question is, I don't know. I think I don't want to give a wrong answer. So, as I said, I'm not in draft this year. I haven't been looking at that. So a lot of people just play drafts. I've got a weird feeling there's just no scoring and they just don't do anything. So that's my guess, but I don't know.
No, sorry to catch you off guard there, Clinton.
Right.
Tim English must have this week.
I think so. I mean, with the 3 trades that we have going to this week, and obviously big concern is around 13 bye. But the way he scored last week, he's only in terms of what he's scoring with his price. I think once again, I said it before. If you want to get him, this is the week to get him because I do think he'll score big again this Friday night. So my answer is yes.
Yeah. Will the rookies from tonight's mid-season draft, if they come into some teams straight away, will they play a big factor in AFL fantasy?
Absolutely. I'm looking at my trades now, and I actually need a cheap player to come into my team, and ideally, I want them to be playing next week. So this week's probably not as important that they play, but I want to bring in someone that is actually playing next week, which means obviously their team could have the bye this week, which makes it very difficult to know if they're going to be playing next week. So potentially I'll be looking at a round 14 bye player that can play this week and next because I need another number next week. And so that's what I'm looking at. And it's going to be interesting to see who. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of debutants from the mid-season draft tonight. Yes.
Can you just recap for us, Clinton, on how for AFL fantasy how the buys work in terms of how many players scoring and how many trades you get?
You get 3 trades, and it's best 18. Only best 18 scores count. Doesn't matter if you have 30 players. A lot of people have, structured teams for the buys, but even if you have a lot of players playing, it's only your best 18 scores. So that ideally, you've done some planning the last month, you should hopefully have roughly 20. If you've got less, I do suggest trying to bring in your team. But then, as I've said, there's a lot of relevant fantasy players that have the bye next week. So it's something to be very careful of. So, yeah, that's the best advice I could give there.
And the buy players, you can use them as looping options. They lock out at the end of the round. Is that right?
They're at the end of the round, yes. And it can be quite sneaky. I mean, you don't have to trade all your trades straight away. So, yeah, if you've got 21 players and one of your rookies is playing the last game, and if you're not happy with his scores, you could still do your third trade and trade someone who's, a rookie that's playing the last game. You could change it all up. So that they lock out at the end of the round. Is a short answer? Yes, they're not at the start.
Interesting. And so that an emergency on the bench, you can still bring them on
as long as there's a non-playing player
on field.
On field, yes.
Yeah, that's all right, Clinton. Of the players who have got the bye this week and are popularly owned, would you be considering trading them out in AFL Fantasy? I'll get up some highly selected players for you, so you're not just randomly throwing out names. Highly owned players: George Hewitt, Cripps, Martin, Caniglio, Petrarca, Butters, Skinner, who's, I don't know why he's in a lot of teams still, but players that are highly owned, Clinton, and have got the bye this week. Would you be looking at getting them out of your side for AFL Fantasy?
No. You want your team to be better by the end of the buys. So I wouldn't be trading the loss of Hewitt, Caniglio, Butters. I'd still keep personally, because you want to make sure you have enough players playing the following week. So, yeah, you think they're not playing this week, you can trade them on, but your team needs to be better at the end of the buys, and also you need to have enough players to field in rounds 13 and 14. If you're trading a buy player out now, it's a player that's going to be playing in round 13 and 14 that you're trading out. So it's just something to be very mindful of, and your team needs to be improving, not going backwards. So you have to be very careful about trading out those types of players.
Some players that scored pretty well in the VFL last week, Clinton, they might be due for a call-up. Matt McGuinness for North Melbourne, your boy from Sydney, Stephen Stevens, and that Gold Coast player who's been in a lot of teams, Elijah Holland.
Hollands, yeah.
Would you be looking to bring them in if they're selected this week?
Yeah, obviously have to keep in mind their bye. So as I said earlier, throughout the last couple of days, looking at McGuinness is the player. If he does get it selected, he's the player I'm bringing in this week, due to the fact he's got the round 14 bye. And as I said, I can't bring in a round 13 bye. So that Adelaide boy that you mentioned earlier, the 12-year-old, as we know he's playing,
Patrick Parnell.
At the moment, I can't really afford to bring in a round 13 bye player. So although he's playing, and the question will be, if these types of players, you want them to be playing throughout the buys. And yeah, he's playing this week. They have the bye, then Adelaide, then he may not be playing round 14. So it's an interesting one. But McGuinness, I'm eyeing off at this stage. We'll see what happens with teams.
Just like to hear your thoughts on a few GWS players, Clinton, that are highly owned, and they didn't play last week in Bruce, Whitfield, and Taranto. Would you be looking to, if you've still got these players, would you be looking to trade them out?
Bruce, Whitfield, Taranto. Taranto should have been gone a couple of weeks ago. If you still own him to this point, did you say Taranto? Yes.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if he's coming back after their bye this week. I don't know. So, as I said, he should have been gone a couple of weeks ago. But if you got him still, you want to hear news that he's going to be back for sure in round 13. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep him. Whitfield, I think, is a little bit similar. A couple of weeks ago, I think he should have gone out of your team. If you still got him now, it's probably worthwhile, seeing if there's news that he's definitely right for next week. If you don't get that news, I still would be there, not keeping him. He may not come back. So you need to find out news he's tracking well. I don't know that up-to-date news. I'm not sure if that came through in Blake's whispers earlier. And the other one's Bruce. Somewhat similar. He hasn't played the last 2 weeks. There's no certainty he's playing. If he does come in and Flynn goes out, I do think he's a great option from round 13 onwards, but we don't know. And for me, it's too risky now to keep. And I should have traded him out last week. I didn't, so I'm trading him out this week. Due to the fact, as we've mentioned, Tim English is a must-have almost.
Yeah. With this week, if you've got 20 players, Clinton, 19, 20 players, and you've got a player who's reached their peak in, let's say, Nick Dacos, would you be looking to trade him out, or a player who's still got a little bit of cash to make in Nick Martin? If you had enough players playing this bye week, Nick Martin or Dacos trade out?
If you've got enough playing, I would trade Dacos out because he's got a bye coming up soon. Martin's just had a good score. Although they have the bye, you're almost certain he's playing round 13 and 14, and he's just scored 113. For me, that's a pretty easy one. I think I'd trade out Dacos.
Yeah. With another one with the DPPs.
That's a question from Young Isaacs to help his team selected. I can see in your face. It's like you're just asking questions for your team. What else is in your team? Yeah. How can I help you?
DPPs have been.
You're the one that needs to help me anyway.
I'm just asking questions for my own benefit here. Some more DPPs come into play this week, Clinton.
Yes.
Who do you, with the addition of Bont and Bailey Smith, who's the best top 6 to finish off the rest of the season now?
Top 6 forwards or top 6 whoever?
Yeah. Top 6 forwards.
Top 6 forwards. Yeah.
I'll give you a chance to look at it.
I think there's a few obvious ones out there. So English is in the forward line now, but in saying that, in my team balance at the moment is in my ruck, but I'll be moving him forward. Dunkley's there. Bont will get there, I believe. Bailey Smith is there. So that's 4 Bulldogs already. I've still got Will Brodie, so he's been ticking along nicely. I think Luke Parker is an option I don't have, but he's definitely getting towards more ownership. I still have Zach Butters, but I don't think he's the top 6 forward. Darcy Cameron's been a brilliant option I still have. So without knowing many of the other options, I think 4 Bulldogs is the way to go. And I'll just try and look at some other names while you talk for a bit.
No, that's okay, Clint. Pretty much those top Bulldogs there, those big 4, Trelaw, I think they're
Trelaw as well.
Yeah. I think I've got to a stage now where my forward line is set after these trades, Clinton, is the main reason I was asking. I've got those 4 Bulldogs. I've got Luke Parker and Will Brodie. So I was just wondering if that'll be my set and forget forward line for the rest of the season. That's mainly what I was asking.
I think the other question is, as part of that, I know I myself have Bont and Bailey Smith. So if you have those types of players, you brought them in early, you've moved them forward. I think the next question is which premium mids you bring in. And I still haven't decided for my own team. I've got 6 premium mids. I have to fill 2 more gaps there. I'm eyeing off Sam Walsh personally. I think he's obviously got the bye, but he's back to his best. So he's the type of player that I'm eyeing off. So I'll have to still decide on that next one.
Yep.
Zach Merritt, maybe.
Question from Jono Clinton. Best bit of overlapping here, but going back to quickly, best Supercoach captain options this week. Wrong segment, Jono, but we'll allow it.
For me, I mentioned the VC. I've got English, but I've got Laird, Oliver, Sean Darcy, and Lockie Neal are the 4 names I'm weighing up as an option to back up Tim English. But I'm a happy Rory Laird owner. I've got the feeling he'll go big. It's one of those things. Don't trust me. I've got my in Supercoach. I'm currently ranked 2,000, but it's what's cost me a top 1,000 at the moment. I should be entrenched in the top 1,000, but I've got this wrong the last month, so I wouldn't do what I say. What do you reckon?
Don't listen to Dash's dogs. There's some good Bulldogs captaincy options on the Friday night. So you've got the Tim English, the McRae, Bontempelli, and then Dunkley. You could VC any of those guys, and then Gold Coast
Tom
and
Stewart.
Adelaide. Not Tom Stewart. He's going to score low after they tag him. Gold Coast and Adelaide probably have the best fixtures. So you're looking at Laird, Keys if you got him, Touk Miller.
Captain Touk for 59 the other week, Jono. So don't listen to me.
Yeah. Let's get into our trade plans for AFL Fantasy, Clinton. Yep. So, like we already mentioned, we've got the 3 AFL Fantasy trades this week. What I'm looking to do, I am looking to take out of my side 3 players who have got the bye in Gibcus, Zach Butters, and Tom Green.
Wow.
I'm sick of Tom Green. Since I've got him in, he's been dismal. So this week, when I trade him out, he'll score big. Oh no, he's got the bye. After that, he'll come back big. So Tim English is a must-have for me. So he's coming in. Matt McGuinness, who's my rookie option, or any 190k player, but I'm pretty sure he'll get a game this week. And my bit of a unique option, Clinton, is in my defense, is in 3% of teams. He's got an average of 81, and he scored 137 last week for Fremantle.
Luke Ryan.
Luke Ryan is coming into my team in AFL Fantasy.
Well, you're going very rogue, Blake, which is why I'm getting confidence that I'll catch you by the season's end. But for your sake, I hope they go well.
Yep, so that will leave me with a back 6 of Crisp, Ryan, Sicily, Short, Sinclair, and Hewitt. A forward line of Dunkley, Parker, Treloar, Wilbro, Tim English, and Bailey Smith. A ruck division of Gawn and Witts, and probably two spots to upgrade in my midfield.
Good work. Just make sure you got your buy structure sorted for round 13 and 14.
Don't you worry about my buy structure, mate.
You got a lot of Bulldogs there. All right. And your VC and C?
Tim English into Lockie Neal at the moment.
Good luck. I'd still had Jack Hayes on bench. He's getting the flick this week. I'm getting rid of Braden Pruce because I'm not super confident he'll play the following week. And Jack Carroll, he did actually play on the weekend, Blake, by the way. He scored.
He did, yeah.
I'm getting rid of him because I don't think he'll be in next week after their bye this week. So my ins, I wanted Tim English, which then just the way the money works, I'm bringing in pretty much 2 rookies. And I'm bringing in Owens despite him having the bye this week, which is a strange thing to do. But it just helps my buy structure because by bringing in English, I need to be very careful of my round 13 team. So I'm bringing Owens early so I can have that round 13 player. And at the moment, as I mentioned, a cheap rookie, which is McGuinness. Also, I was waiting to see how the team selections play out. And by doing that, that actually leaves me with 300 grand in the bank. So my mission was to try and set up my team for the round 13 and 14 to make sure I can bring in some more premium options instead of bringing in a dubious Luke Ryan or something like that. But no, it's English and 2 rookies, so double downgrade, and hopefully I'm set up well enough to attack round 13 with. So I think I'll still just only scrape 18 or 19. So hopefully my players don't get injured this week. My VC, my VC. Sorry, I will probably do English, but yeah, as I said, I'm still tempted by the Bont, but yeah, English VC, and then if that doesn't pan out, I think I'll go towards the Royal Ed captain.
Royal Ed captain.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, like you said, don't listen to Dash's Dogs captains. But hopefully it works out for you, Clinton. Anything further you want to add before we wrap up the show? It's been a bit longer than the other ones.
No, it's all good. Good luck, Blake. Hope your trades go well. I'm excited. Yeah, this time of year, it's a good opportunity to go up the rankings. It's just injuries are very important. So I'm just pretending Zorko got injured for my Supercoach team and just ignoring the fact he scored 39. So, yeah, good luck, Blake, as Scott just said. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend's footy.
Yeah. Good luck to our community for round 12 and good luck for your team, Clinton. We'll see you next time.
Bye.